It is July 22nd, which everybody knows is International Mango Day, something that we've celebrated as an international day since 1987. Now, some of you might be very excited to celebrate one of the world's most popular fruits, but some of you may be less so, especially if you're in the United States where mangoes are far less popular. According to mango.com, roughly a third of American consumers say that they have never purchased a mango, and many Americans don't even know what one looks like. Well, some of them look like this. But even if you have never savored the food of the gods, you'll still be interested in their history, which is quite fun. It includes, yes, pirates, passion, paisley, and a very unlucky dentist. Mangoes are often referred to as the king of fruits because International Fruit Export Company NRTC explains on their website they are juicy, luscious, sweet, and full of sunshine. They would surely be the fruit of choice if summer had a delectable flavor. The title also might come from their popularity, being widely consumed around the world and a dietary staple and cultural cornerstone across much of Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. However, their roughly 60 million metric tons of annual production puts them behind fruits such as bananas, apples, and oranges, and even watermelons. And if you want to start a debate over the nature of the word fruit, the world's most popular fruit by volume produced, tomatoes. This all calls into question the whole king of fruits concept. I mean, the title, the king of fruits, is also commonly applied to durian and historically to pineapples as well. Luckily, plants don't seem to much care about who has the title king. If it was people, we'd likely fight a war over it. Mangoes have been with us for a very long time. Dr. Indu Mehta of Kumail University noted in a 2017 edition of the International Journal of Engineering Science Invention that paleobotanists have found fossil evidence of the genus Mangifera, literally meaning plant-bearing mangoes, going back some 60 million years to the Paleocene. Dr. Mehta concludes that the fossil evidence supports the claim that the fruit originated in what is today northeast India in the foothills of the Himalayas, where wild mango trees can still be found. Mangoes are stone fruits like peaches, plums, and cherries. The stone is actually a fibrous husk called the endocarp that protects the seed. The genus Mangifera indica is part of the family Anacardiaceae, which also includes cashews and pistachios, as well as sumac, poison oak, and poison ivy. That relationship shows in that some people can get contact dermatitis from mango tree sap. Mango trees can be quite large, up to 100 feet tall or 30 meters, with a broad canopy to match. The average lifespan of a mango tree is between 40 and 100 years, although some trees have been known to produce fruit for over 300 years. The trees are anchored by deep, unbranched taproots, allowing them to draw up water and minerals that otherwise would be inaccessible, and their dense evergreen canopies create essential cooling microclimates, and as such mango trees are considered foundational to tropical ecosystems. In the wild, mango trees are highly heterogeneous and cross-pollinate easily. One implication of that for most types is that seeds will not produce a similar fruit to the parent, so commercially most mango trees are propagated via grafting. Exactly when humans started munching on them is unclear, but there are, according to Dr. Mehta, mentions of mango trees in Hindu scripture dating back to 4000 BC, although the fruit might have been cultivated, he argues, since time immemorial. The long cultivation of the fruit has created deep cultural connections and figures prominently in art, literature, and poetry in India. Various types of art in India frequently feature a curved motif. Vanarathi Nathani notes in the website of Indian art dealer Memaraki that the shape, called amb, an Indian name for the mango, is common in Indian textiles such as Kani shawls and Zardozi embroidery. Mehta explains that not only is it one of the most highly prized fruits of South Asia, it is also intimately connected with folklore and legends across many religions. In Hindu culture, mango trees are considered the abodes of the gods, and the fruit the food of the gods. Parts of the plant are used in numerous rituals, and boughs of the tree are used for decoration during festivals. The fruit figures prominently in Indian folklore. For example, a divine mango is offered by the gods Shiva and Parvati to their children Ganesh and Subramanya as a reward for a contest. The fruit is also associated with love and good fortune, and the mango blossom is one of the 5 sacred flowers used to tip the arrows of Kamadeva, the Hindu god of love. Some mango-centric websites claim that connection to love is more than theoretical. They claim that mangoes are an aphrodisiac owing to their high content of vitamin E. I'm not going to really vouch for that. I'll simply say that you can test the theory at your leisure. Staff reporter Paramita Talukta wrote in the web magazine Science Survey in 2022, "Emperors have coveted it. Poets have penned its virtues, and ancient forts have its shape and engraved on their walls. The Indo-Persian poet Emir Khusrau deemed the mango to be Nazga Taran Mewa Hindustan, the fairest fruit of India." From the pages of sacred Hindi texts to the courtrooms of the Delhi Sultanate, the mango has been a pivotal part of South Asian culture for centuries, and it will continue to share its magic for centuries to come. Mehta explains that as Buddhism rose in India, mangoes became associated with that religion as well. Buddha himself was said to meditate under a mango tree. This is particularly important in that Mehta writes, among Buddhist rulers, mangoes were exchanged as gifts and become an important tool of diplomacy. And during this period, Buddhist monks took mangoes with them wherever they went, popularizing the fruit. Planting mango trees was seen as an act of faith, and they were commonly planted around monasteries. This spread the fruit to Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, and parts of China, sometime around the 5th century BC. Over time, global trade carried mangoes as well. Around 1000 AD, Persian trade routes formed a vital global web connecting China, the Islamic world, India, and the Mediterranean. Key paths included the overland Silk Road and the Persian Gulf Maritime Network and trans-Iranian caravan tracks. These trade routes brought mangoes to the Middle East and North Africa, and the famous Muslim explorer Ibn Battuta noted their presence in what is modern-day Somalia in the 14th century. Meanwhile, on the subcontinent, the great Mughal Empire rose in the 15th century, and its leaders, starting with Babur, the founder of the empire, were fond of mangoes, making them courtly gifts, developing hundreds of cultivars and planting thousands of trees. It was during this period that the fruit was likely first encountered by the Portuguese on the subcontinent. Mehta notes that the Portuguese, who landed in Calcutta in 1498, were the first to establish a mango trade. He writes that they took the name of the fruit from the Malayalam language, manga, and introduced the fruit to the world as the mango. Mangoes then went pretty much everywhere they might grow, brought by the Portuguese to Brazil and the West Indies in the 16th century, and to South America and Mexico by the Spanish in the 17th century. They reached the West Indies from Brazil in the 18th century, and the United States in Florida and Southern California, and Australia in the 19th century. The path was sometimes strange. The Facebook page of Visit Jamaica notes that the first mango plants introduced into Jamaica were captured on the high seas on their way from the East Indies to the West Indies by Lord Rodney's ship HMS Flora in 1782. They were first planted in the private garden at Gordontown, St. Andrew, belonging to Hinton East. That's right, captured on the high seas because, of course, all good stories involve pirates. The fruit, a primary food and economic crop, has integrated into Jamaican culture, including the sharing of backyard mangoes among friends, called the ritual of giving, and the communal tradition of wandering into rural communal lands to gather the fruit, called the mango walk. Trade also brought the mango to Europe in another and surprising way. By the 18th century, the amb symbol, so common in Indian textiles, made its way, Nathani explains, westward via Kashmiri shawls, which were highly coveted in European courts. The pattern was then adopted in a surprising place. Lindsay Baker noted on the website of the BBC in 2017, "The pattern took the continent by storm. The shawls were soon imitated throughout Europe, notably in Wales and in the town of Paisley in Renfrewshire, Scotland. And from that point onwards, the English term for the motif was paisley. And so began a quiet irony," Nathani writes. "What was once the fruit of the Indian subcontinent, hand-drawn on floor and fabric, became synonymous with a town in Scotland." The fruit itself, however, was not quite as successful. Mehta notes mangoes were first recorded in Europe by Friar Jordanus in 1328, but Europeans didn't fall in love with them, as did countries with tropical climates. Although mangoes are the world's third largest food crop today, they still remain obscure in Europe, he writes. But of all the tales of the spread of the mango and its impact on culture, perhaps the strangest and most bizarrely tragic is the way that it was introduced in mainland China. In 1968, Chairman Mao launched the Cultural Revolution. The upheaval was a complex part of the nation's history following the end of the Chinese Civil War. Chairman Mao's influence had waned after the disastrous failure of the Great Leap Forward. The Cultural Revolution, sparked in 1966, was seen as a new revolutionary upheaval meant to reassert Mao's authority over the party and to purge perceived capitalist and traditional or bourgeoisie elements from Chinese society. Peculiar to this upheaval were the Red Guards. Blake Cole writes in Omnia, the website of the University of Pennsylvania School of Arts and Sciences. The movement was unique in that one of Mao's major cohorts and agents of revolution was a mass of students who had become known as the Red Guard. The Red Guard were, Cole notes, educated in a system rife with pro-communist propaganda. These student mobs played the role in purging perceived enemies of Mao with fervor, but BBC noted in 2017, by the summer of 1968, the country became engulfed in fighting, and the Red Guard factions competed for power. As Beijing's Tsinghua University descended into violence, Mao offered an out-of-the-box solution. He sent 30,000 factory workers to the university, with the goal of being a barrier between warring Red Guard factions. He apparently thought that the students wouldn't harm factory workers who represented the communist ideal. He was wrong. BBC notes the students attacked them with spears and sulfuric acid, killing 5 and injuring more than 700 before finally surrendering. As thanks to the workers, Mao sent a strange gift. John Papp writes in the magazine Vision, the people of Fulin, a small township in China's Sichuan province, lined the streets in excitement. There was to be a special visit to their town, a gift from Chairman Mao himself. As people waited in anticipation, the sounds of drums and cymbals rang through the streets. Finally, a truck arrived with a military guard. The head of the township stepped forward to receive the gift, perched on a red cloth and presented on a tray. Mao, it seems, had sent the factory 40 mangoes. Reputedly, the mangoes had been a gift to Mao the day before by the Pakistani foreign minister. Not being a fan of fruit, Mao had sent them to the factory workers in northern China who had never seen a mango. Zhang Kui, a worker who occupied Tsinghua, was quoted in the BBC. The military representative came into our factory with the mango raised in both hands. We discussed what to do with it, whether to split it among us and eat it or to preserve it. We finally decided to preserve it. The mango was preserved in formaldehyde. Moreover, wax versions were made, placed under glass, and distributed to workers. Art historian Frida Merck told BBC, some people in Beijing told me that they perceived that Mao had finally intervened in the chaotic random violence, and that the mango symbolized the end of the Cultural Revolution. The mangoes that he had regifted because he didn't like fruit became literally a symbol of the chairman. Although BBC notes it may be regarded as vulgar in the West, but in China, regifting is widely seen as a compliment, enhancing the status of both the giver and the recipient. Mangoes were carried in parades, hosted in receptions, and even placed on altars. Pictures of mangoes were painted on household items, and a poem was written. Seeing that golden mango was as if seeing the great leader, Chairman Mao. Standing before that golden mango was just like standing beside Chairman Mao. However, BBC notes, the mango fever fizzled out after about 18 months, and soon discarded wax replicas were being used as candles during electrical outages. Papp writes, once Mao died in 1976, the mango craze was officially over. Today, mangoes are common in China and seen as a common consumer good. In fact, today, China is the second largest producer of mangoes in the world. The mango mania is a strange tale altogether, but perhaps the strangest is the sad story of Dr. Han, the Fulin village dentist. When the fruit was unveiled at Fulin, he was apparently nonplussed, saying that it looked like a sweet potato. Papp writes, revolutionaries heard his remarks and considered them blasphemous. Dr. Han was arrested, quickly tried, and found guilty of counter-revolutionary sentiment. The dentist was paraded through the streets on the back of a truck as an example to those who would disrespect revolutionary spirit. The truck eventually reached the edge of town, where Dr. Han was escorted off the vehicle and executed, with a single shot to the head. Dr. Han didn't live, of course, to appreciate the irony, as in India, the fruit is seen as a symbol of good fortune. The mango is the national fruit of Pakistan, India, and the Philippines. It is also the national tree of Bangladesh, and while mango mania never reached quite such a fevered pitch in Europe and North America, better supply chains have slowly increased the fruit's popularity there. The magazine Fruit Today noted last March that avocados and mangoes are now staples across European diets, featured in breakfasts, salads, bowls, and ready-to-eat meals, driven by the rise of healthier eating habits and growing consumer concern over food quality. Fruit Today touts European-grown fruits, while the 2025 edition of the Economic Times notes growing popularity of Indian-grown varieties, supported by modern refrigerated supply chains. Farish Das, a food writer for Canada's CBC, noted in April 2023 that it's mango season in Toronto, and the prize fruit is flying off the shelves at a rate of 300 boxes per week at one downtown shop. The agriculture economics website Agronometrics wrote in 2025 that since their introduction to Florida soil in the early 1830s, mangoes have moved from the margins of the produce aisle to the center of a variety of recipes. And numbers back it up, as imports to the United States climbed to record levels in 2025, according to the National Mango Board. While mangoes can be grown in Florida, California, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico, only an estimated of 1% of U.S. mango demand is served by domestic production. While surveys show that only around a quarter of U.S. households regularly purchase mangoes, that might be changing. The website of Gourmet Gift Baskets did a survey in 2025 of the fruit that is most Googled, and mangoes came out in front in a whopping 40 states. That is, people in the U.S. are Googling mangoes at more than twice the rate that they Google bananas, although, to be fair, most of us already know what a banana is. But do we all know what a mango is? And maybe not. If you're from certain parts of the American Midwest, you might have heard green peppers referred to as mangoes. I know they're not exactly similar. There are a few theories as to how this occurred, but the most popular seems to be that in the 18th century, mangoes would be imported from India, pickled. It was the only way to preserve fresh fruit for the voyage. The name of the fruit somehow became conflated with the process of preserving it, and in some parts of the country, the process of pickling became known as mangoing. Some recipes from the late 19th century would refer to mangoed cucumbers or mangoed peppers. As green peppers are also frequently preserved, remember Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, by slicing them and pickling them in brine, in some places they came to be known as mangoes. However, the trend seems to have been common among older generations, so you might have to ask your grandmother about that one. There are actually thousands of mango cultivars that are consumed throughout the world, so many so that some people question whether they're really all the same species. If you've never known how to pick a mango, experts will suggest to you that you don't look at the color. Instead, you gently squeeze them. They should give a little bit under pressure, or sniff them at the stem end. It should have a rich and fruity smell. If you get one that's hard by mistake, though, just leave it out at room temperature for a couple of days and it will ripen. If you don't know how to cut and peel a mango, there's actually a trick to it. You're essentially going to cut it in half and score it inside the skin. Look it up online. It will save you a lot of effort. But if you want to celebrate International Mango Day, you might try putting some mango in your salsa. That's quite popular. Or maybe making a mango smoothie, or just cutting it up and eating it fresh, or putting it on a salad. But if you do, take a moment to remember poor Dr. Hahn, whose tragic story reminds us all that you should respect the king of fruits. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode of The History Guy, and if you did, please feel free to like and subscribe and share The History Guy with your friends. And if you also believe that history deserves to be remembered, then you can support The History Guy as a member on YouTube, a supporter on our community at Locals, or as a patron on Patreon. You can also check out our great merchandise shop or book a special message from The History Guy on Cameo.